This video is extremely important. Remember, they're changing my voice. First of all, we must understand what normal is. Normal includes moral. Okay, there's a difference between common and normal. As the son of two doctors and someone who's been researching mental health, okay, and someone with a top martial arts challenge who no one can beat at sparring, which shows superior insight, among other things, I assure you that common is not the same as normal. Was it normal in Nazi Germany to be a disassociated Nazi? No, it was common. People usually abuse the word normal by applying it to common, or the norm there. There's a difference between the norm in that context and normal. So now let's consider the various groups in America. Rock and roll, for example. The essence of rock and roll may very well be Marilyn Manson or heavy metal or some kind of fanatic expression of it. Hardcore, hard rock. Hardcore. And it basically is a psychopathic lunatic just acting up. You know, they like to think about groups like the Goths and the Vikings and groups that are portrayed, whether that's the case or not, as being extremely violent and irrational. And only caring about sex, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There are tens of millions of people who live rock and roll lifestyles or are rock and roll fans. Does that make it normal? No. That is common. It is also common to dress like a slut, you know, showing cleavage, walk in a certain way, wearing heels that were worn by prostitutes in Rome. That was the common thing for prostitutes in Rome to do, was to wear heels. It is a sign of a prostitute mentality. How many females wear heels? It is common. It is not moral. If it is not moral, it does not reflect healthy brain function. When somebody's brain works effectively, they simply choose to be moral, even if it kills them. Now that the planet has been stolen from the righteous as the part of the reproductive cycles and the social, political, economic, and cultural processes of the nations of the world, there can never be a normal society after the last normal person dies. Well, how can we determine in a pinpointed manner, what normal is and when it ends? It has to do with someone having a logical claim to a right, in terms of being right, to be on this planet. People who cheated the righteous out of their right to lead, their right to exist, the right to have kids in a planet that is worth having kids in, cannot say that they have a right to be here in truth, only in their cultural boundaries, only in their cultures. For example, a fundamentalist Muslim, a radical Muslim terrorist might argue that only terrorists have a right to be on this planet. Okay? Does that mean they're right? No. Because it's not universally true. Someone came up with a theory and they ran with it. Universally true has to do with a sound conclusion. There is no logical way for people to argue that they can be normal and have a right to be here. They can be moral, in other words. Okay, there's no way for them to argue that they can be moral. There's no way for them to argue that they can be moral after I die. Because there won't be a single person on the planet who's living in a way that's moral, because they'll have cheated the righteous out of their right to lead, their right to reproduce, okay? The right to have kids on a planet that was worth having kids on. And if for nothing else, what overkills this point is that the planet is not in a state that a normal person would reproduce on. Okay, again, I tell you, the planet is not in a state that a normal person would reproduce in or on. Okay, it's very straightforward. No normal human person, right, having humanity, right, a state of benevolence, right, morals, right, humanity. No normal human person would reproduce on Earth or anywhere else because of all the horrible things that happen, the lack of one decent culture that we can point to that has more than one member in it. I'm the only person in my culture. the lack of a sound moral leader anywhere. Not in politics, not in law enforcement, military, not in the churches. There's no moral leader but me. And why? Because I've proven that with universal pinpointed moral precision that the Royal African Falcon top martial artist, which is me, is the universal leader. Again, a terrorist could argue that al-Baghdadi or Osama bin Laden is the true leader of humanity. But that's their cultural perspective, okay? And in the absence of a universal and logical argument, they cannot argue that. So we look at the natural alpha, who it's wrong to cheat out of his right to lead, okay? Who's morally precise. When we see that come together, like we see with me, okay? That is the moral way to live. That is normal. It is normal and natural to obey God through me, to obey moral precision through me. If you don't believe in God, and say, this guy is moral, and he's saying, be moral. He'll give you your free will to a certain extent. Right? You have your free will to, you have the right to not believe in God if that's what you choose. You see what I'm saying? So he's not forcing you into his religion, if you want to call it that, but he's forcing you to be moral. And the laws would be moral and natural and true. Okay, so nobody has the right to reproduce in this world because it's too evil, and they've cheated me to such a point that I couldn't possibly have a child in this world and for it to be the right thing. I couldn't possibly impregnate a woman, bring in a child into this world, and for it to be moral. So there's no moral path. Therefore, it's not moral to continue. Therefore, you can't be normal without being moral. So everyone is abnormal, and they're drugging people based on how the governing class feels about it, their sense of propriety, what they think is proper. Proper is not necessarily moral or normal. In this case, with them, it's not. So they say, hey, they want everyone to pretend the Jews are ideal, the whites, the LGBT. That's what they think should be done and not what is moral or normal. It's what is common because they've reproduced bootlicking cowards who didn't hesitate to screen out the righteous and take their piece in the blood money pie. Pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, put in the comments. This video is important. It is core to being moral. And core in being moral is to live this truth by rallying to obey moral precision through me. And the first thing I would do is set up a morally precise committee to help me pinpoint what is moral on every issue. Thank you.